The Celestial Hierarchy. The Galactic Council Hall gleamed like polished obsidian, its crystalline spires stretching toward the dual suns of Axiom Prime. Commander Ilara Kane stood motionless at the center of the vast chamber, her naval uniform a stark contrast of midnight blue against the iridescent floor. Around her, rising in concentric circles, delegates from 100 worlds watched with expressions ranging from boredom to unconcealed contempt. Ilara felt their stares. The six-limbed Tyrax with their compound eyes that reflected her image back 1,000-fold. The gelatinous Vor who quivered with what she had learned was their version of amusement. The towering Daxi whose scaled skin shimmered under the artificial light. Above them all, seated on a dais of rare metals harvested from dying stars, the Council Triumvirate presided. High Counselor Genra, a meridian whose silver-veined skin caught the light like mercury, leaned forward slightly, the motion causing a ripple of attention through the hall. The human petition to access the outer territories is hereby denied. Genra's voice carried the musical undertones characteristic of his species, yet the words fell hard and final. Furthermore, we propose additional restrictions on human vessels entering the Cygnus corridor. Ilara's jaw clenched, but she kept her expression neutral. A skill honed through 3 years as Earth's ambassador to this assembly of species who regarded humans as little more than clever animals. The latest in a long line of humiliations. High Counselor, she began, Earth respectfully requests the Council reconsider. The Cygnus corridor represents our most viable trade route. These restrictions would. The restrictions are necessary, interrupted Counselor Vexlar, a Daxi whose towering frame and ridge-lined skull gave him a perpetual look of aggression. Human vessels have proven unreliable. Your primitive shielding technologies contaminate the quantum lanes. This was a lie. Earth's ships met every standard set by the Council, standards designed specifically to be nearly impossible for human technology to achieve. Yet they had done it, only to face new concerns and regulations. Our vessels exceed the safety parameters established by your own regulatory commission, Ilara countered, struggling to keep the edge from her voice. If the Council has specific concerns, we would welcome the opportunity to address them directly. A ripple of what could only be described as laughter moved through the assembly. The Vor delegates in particular quivered violently, their translucent bodies flashing with bioluminescent patterns that Ilara had come to recognize as mockery. High Counselor Genra raised an elegant 6-fingered hand. Commander Kane, your species has been granted unprecedented access to the galactic community despite your developmental limitations. Many on this council consider this generosity already excessive. The third member of the Triumvirate, Counselor Teledzin of the enigmatic Aetheri, spoke for the first time. Her voice was like wind through crystal. Perhaps we should revisit whether humanity is ready for any interstellar presence at all. The chamber fell silent. This was worse than Ilara had anticipated. Earth had spent decades clawing for every scrap of recognition, every trade agreement, every technological exchange. Now they threatened to strip it all away. Counselor Teledzin, Ilara said, choosing her words carefully, humanity has maintained peaceful relations with all council races for 73 standard cycles. We have adhered to every regulation, contributed research in medical and botanical sciences, and provided rare minerals from our system. On what grounds would the Council consider such a drastic measure? Vexlar's scaled face contorted into what might have been a smile. Perhaps on the grounds that you are barely 2 centuries removed from killing each other over tribal differences and primitive resources. Perhaps because your genetic structure itself is. He paused, searching for the word. Unrefined. More ripples of amusement. Ilara had heard it all before. Humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too biologically chaotic. Their brief history of spaceflight made them unworthy of equal standing. Zenra gestured elegantly. This discussion is premature. For now, the new restrictions on the Cygnus corridor will be implemented within 1 standard cycle. The matter of humanity's broader privileges will be revisited at the next Council Summit. He struck a crystalline chime beside his seat. This session is concluded. Just like that. No vote, no further debate. The dace began to rise, carrying the triumvirate toward the vaulted ceiling where a private chamber awaited them. The delegates began to disperse, many not even bothering to glance at Ilara as they floated, slithered, or strode past her. Only one paused, a Lyrisi diplomat whose luminous eyes held something almost like sympathy. "Your species has potential, Commander," she said quietly. "But potential is not enough here. The cosmos has old hierarchies that do not bend easily to newcomers." Then she too was gone, leaving Ilara alone on the speaking floor. "They're choking us out systematically," Ilara said, pacing the confines of Earth's modest embassy suite. "Every cycle, new restrictions, new concerns about human presence." Admiral Chen's hologram flickered slightly, a result of the Council's regulation of Earth's communication bandwidth. Another subtle humiliation. "The Security Council expected this," he said, his weathered face grave. "After the Procyon incident, the aliens have been looking for any excuse to marginalize us further." Ilara stopped pacing. "The Procyon incident was a setup. Our analysis shows the radiation leak was deliberate. Someone wanted those Vor settlers to blame humans. Proving it is another matter," Chen replied. "What matters now is our response to these new restrictions. Earth can't sustain its colonies if the Cygnus corridor is heavily regulated." Ilara nodded grimly. Earth had expanded cautiously, establishing mining operations and research outposts in nearby systems. All of it depended on the flow of supplies and personnel through Cygnus. "There's something else," Chen said, his voice dropping. "Something that might change our position fundamentally." Ilara raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "We found something on Mars. An artifact buried deep beneath the Olympus Mons excavation site. It's not of human origin, but it's connected to us somehow. The preliminary findings are being transmitted on a secure channel." A data packet appeared on Ilara's terminal. As she scanned it, her eyes widened. "This can't be right," she whispered. "That's what we thought," Chen replied. "But 3 separate teams have verified it. The artifact is approximately 200,000 years old, yet it contains engravings that share significant structural similarities with proto-human languages. Languages that didn't exist until tens of thousands of years later." Ilara's mind raced. "Are you suggesting some alien civilization influenced human linguistic development before we were even civilized?" "That's one theory. But there's another." Chen leaned closer to the holographic transmitter, his image growing larger in Ilara's suite. "What if it's the other way around? What if human language patterns were already present in this ancient alien artifact because we're connected to them in some way we don't yet understand?" "The Council species would never accept that," Ilara said automatically. "They've built their entire hierarchy on the belief that humans are evolutionary accidents from a backwater planet. Which is why we need to understand exactly what we found before they discover it exists," Chen replied. "Dr. Nathan Reeves is leading the research team. He's requesting you return to Earth immediately. Whatever this artifact is, he believes it could redefine humanity's place in the galaxy." Ilara stared out the window at the gleaming spires of the Council City. For 3 years, she had played their diplomatic games, swallowed their insults, fought for scraps of respect, and they had responded with more restrictions, more condescension. Perhaps it was time for a new approach. "Tell Dr. Reeves I'm on my way," she said. The Mars excavation site sprawled across the northern slope of Olympus Mons like an open wound in the red planet's surface. Massive excavators and analysis domes dotted the landscape, connected by pressurized tunnels that snaked between them. At the center, a newly constructed high-security facility stood apart from the rest, its reinforced walls gleaming under the pale Martian sun. Dr. Nathan Reeves waited as the airlock cycled, admitting Commander Ilara Kane into the sterile analysis chamber. She removed her helmet, revealing features that carried the weariness of her rapid journey from Axiom Prime. "Commander," Nathan nodded, his lean face serious beneath a shock of prematurely gray hair. "Thank you for coming so quickly. After reading your report, I couldn't get here fast enough," she replied, moving toward the center of the room where a cylindrical containment field hummed softly. "Is this it?" Floating within the energy barrier was an object approximately 1 meter in length, its surface a dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Covering its entire surface were intricate patterns, not random, but clearly deliberate. Some resembled flowing script, others geometric symbols arranged in complex arrays. "We're calling it the Rosetta object," Nathan said, approaching the field. For obvious reasons, Ilara studied the artifact carefully. "It doesn't look like any alien technology I've encountered." "That's because it isn't. At least not from any known species." Nathan tapped a control panel, and the containment field rotated the object slowly. "Carbon dating puts it at roughly 200,000 years old. We found it embedded in a stratum that predates any known Martian exploration. It was here long before humans reached Mars. And yet you're saying it contains human language patterns." Nathan's eyes lit with the intensity of scientific discovery. "Not just patterns, Commander. Actual proto-linguistic structures that would later appear in the earliest human writing systems. Sumerian cuneiform, Proto-Sinitic script, early Chinese oracle bone inscriptions. They're all here, thousands of years before they appeared on Earth." Ilara moved closer to the barrier, her eyes narrowing as she studied the intricate markings. "How is this possible?" "That's the question that's keeping my team awake at night," Nathan replied. "There are two main theories. Either some alien civilization influenced early human language development, or there's some connection between humans and whoever created this artifact." Ilara finished. "A connection the Council species would never acknowledge." Nathan nodded grimly. "There's more. The artifact emits a low-level quantum field that interacts with organic neural tissue in a highly specific way. When we exposed cultured human neural cells to this field, they showed increased synapse formation and activity patterns consistent with language processing centers. It responds to human brain tissue." Ilara couldn't hide her astonishment. "Not just responds. It stimulates it in a way that suggests the artifact was designed to interface with minds structured like ours." Nathan ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "In all my years of xenorchaeology, I've never seen anything like it. It's as if this object was made for humans, long before modern humans even existed." A chill ran down Ilara's spine as the implications began to sink in. The Council species had always treated humanity as evolutionary latecomers, barely worthy of notice. This artifact suggested a very different story, one where humans might be connected to something ancient and significant. "Have you tested neural tissue from other species?" she asked. "Limited samples from Council archives," Nathan confirmed. "Nothing. No response from Tyrax, Vor, or Daxi neural structures. There's something unique about human brain patterns that this artifact recognizes." Ilara circled the containment field slowly, her mind racing. "If the Council discovers this, they'll either dismiss it as human desperation for relevance, or—" Nathan hesitated. "Or they'll take it from us," Ilara finished. "Because if it's genuine, it threatens the established order." Nathan nodded grimly. "Which is why we need to understand exactly what we have before anyone else knows it exists. My team has been working around the clock to decipher the inscriptions, but progress is slow. These patterns are complex, not just language but something more fundamental." Ilara stared at the artifact, feeling a strange sense of connection to the ancient object. For decades, humanity had struggled for recognition among the stars, only to be treated as primitive newcomers barely worth acknowledging. Now this silent witness from the distant past hinted at a different truth. "What do you need from me, Doctor?" she asked. "Your diplomatic credentials can fast-track our access to certain restricted Council archives, linguistic databases, xenoarchaeological findings that might help us decode this faster," Nathan explained. "And we need time. If the Council moves to restrict human activities further, This project could be compromised. Ilara nodded slowly, her decision forming. Get me everything you've discovered so far. I'm returning to the council session in 3 days, and I need to be prepared for what comes next. As she spoke, the artifact rotated in its containment field, and for just a moment, Ilara could have sworn the symbols seemed to pulse, as if responding to her voice. A coincidence, surely, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something ancient had awakened, and the cosmos was about to change. The hierarchy that had kept humanity restrained was built on certain assumptions about what humans were and where they came from. If those assumptions proved false, Ilara smiled for the first time since arriving. Let's find out what this thing has to say, Doctor. It's time the galaxy heard a new voice in the conversation. Ancient whispers. Dr. Nathan Reeves stared at the holographic projection until his eyes burned. The translation algorithms had been running for 72 hours straight, comparing the artifact's markings with every known writing system in human history. Lines of code scrolled endlessly across multiple screens as the supercomputer attempted to find patterns, correlations, anything that might crack the ancient code. You should rest, said Dr. Layla Sharma, looking up from her own workstation. Her dark eyes were rimmed with exhaustion. Staring harder won't make it work faster. Nathan rubbed his face. We're missing something fundamental. These algorithms should have found at least partial matches by now. The research facility beneath Olympus Mons had expanded in the week since Commander Kane's departure. New equipment had been shuttled in under the guise of standard geological research. A team of Earth's top linguists, cryptographers, and synorchaeologists worked in shifts around the clock. The pressure was immense, and not just scientific pressure. Earth's political position was deteriorating rapidly. Reports from the Council indicated that the Thaxi faction was pushing for even greater restrictions on human expansion. The sickness corridor regulations were just the beginning. Look at this, Nathan said, manipulating the holographic display to isolate a specific sequence of symbols from the artifact. This pattern repeats 17 times across the surface, always with slight variations in the surrounding glyphs. Layla moved beside him, studying the highlighted section. Could be a noun or proper name that appears in different contexts. That's what I thought, Nathan agreed. But what if? He paused as the lab doors slid open. Admiral Chen entered, his uniform impeccable despite the early hour. Behind him followed a woman Nathan didn't recognize. Elderly, with steel-gray hair pulled back from a deeply lined face. She walked with a slight stoop, but her eyes were sharp and assessing as they swept the laboratory. Dr. Reeves. Chen nodded curtly. This is Professor Eliana Korath. She specializes in prehistorical linguistics. The old woman stepped forward without waiting for further introduction. Show me the artifact, she demanded, her voice surprisingly strong. Nathan glanced at Chen, who gave a slight nod. This way, Professor. He led her to the containment field where the Rosetta object still floated, its dark surface seeming to drink in the light. Professor Korath approached it slowly, her eyes widening as she took in the intricate patterns etched across its surface. Remarkable, she whispered. And you verified its age. Multiple times, Nathan confirmed. It's approximately 200,000 years old. The professor circled the containment field, her gaze never leaving the artifact. Admiral Chen briefed me during our journey here, but I confess I was skeptical. Now, she reached out a hand, stopping just short of the energy barrier. Now I understand why you called me. You recognize something? Nathan asked, hope rising in his chest. Not specifically, no. Korath's eyes narrowed. But there are structural elements here that shouldn't exist. Patterns that would emerge in human writing systems tens of thousands of years after this object was created. She pointed to a particular sequence. This arrangement resembles proto-Sinitic constructions. And here, these could be precursors to logographic systems like early Chinese characters. That's what our analysis suggested, Nathan said, excitement creeping into his voice. But we can't determine whether it's a complete language or just symbolic patterns. Korath gave him a sharp look, All language begins as symbolic patterns, Doctor. The question is whether these symbols carried meaning to their creators, and why they would resemble writing systems that didn't exist when this artifact was made. Admiral Chen stepped forward. Professor Korath has access to research that isn't in any database, classified or otherwise. She's spent her career studying what she calls linguistic anomalies across human civilization, patterns that shouldn't exist, Korath explained. Writing systems that emerged simultaneously in isolated populations, structural similarities between unrelated languages separated by vast distances and time periods. She turned back to the artifact. My colleagues dismissed these as coincidence or the result of common cognitive structures in human brains. I always suspected there was more to it. Nathan felt a surge of excitement. You think this artifact might explain those anomalies? Perhaps. The professor's weathered hand moved over the holographic interface, manipulating the display to zoom in on specific sections. Or perhaps those anomalies might help us understand this artifact. Bring me everything you've compiled so far. And I'll need access to the neural response data as well. The council chamber on Axiom Prime seemed even more imposing than Ilara remembered. Perhaps it was knowing what she now knew, or suspected, that made the gleaming spires and vaulted ceilings feel like an elaborate facade. A beautiful mask covering something else entirely. She stood once again at the center of the chamber, facing the triumvirate. Around her, the delegates watched with the same expressions of boredom and disdain. Nothing had changed, yet everything had. Commander Kane, High Counselor, Genra's voice, carried its usual musical undertones. You have requested this extraordinary session to address the implementation of the Cygnus Corridor restrictions. The Council has granted your petition out of courtesy, but I must emphasize that the decision has been finalized. Ilara inclined her head slightly. I appreciate the Council's willingness to hear Earth's concerns. The restrictions as currently formulated would reduce human transit through the corridor by 68%. This would effectively isolate 3 of our research outposts and compromise the viability of our mining operations in the Eridan sector. Regrettable but necessary, Counselor Vexlar replied, his scaled face impassive. Your species' vessels have repeatedly demonstrated quantum wake instabilities. This was another fabrication. Earth ships maintain the strictest standards of quantum stability, often exceeding Council requirements. But arguing this point directly would get her nowhere. Perhaps, Ilara said carefully, the Council would consider a graduated implementation of these restrictions. This would allow time for our engineers to address the concerns raised by the Council's Security Division. A murmur ran through the assembly. The Vor delegates quivered in what might have been surprise. Ilara had never before conceded the legitimacy of their technical complaints, always arguing instead that human ships already met or exceeded standards. Counselor Telezin's crystalline voice cut through the whispers. You propose a delay then. I propose a collaborative solution, Ilara countered. Earth would welcome technical advisors from the Council to work directly with our engineers. Together, we could address any legitimate concerns about quantum wake patterns. Another ripple of reaction swept the chamber. The offer to allow Council technicians direct access to Earth's propulsion systems was unprecedented. High Counselor Genra leaned forward slightly. This is an unexpected proposal, Commander. The Council will need to consider its implications. Of course, Ilara nodded. Earth understands the importance of security. We merely wish to demonstrate our commitment to addressing the Council's concerns through cooperation rather than confrontation. She could feel the subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere, not acceptance, never that, but perhaps a whisper of reevaluation. Just as she had hoped. She needed time, and this unexpected conciliatory approach might buy it. As the triumvirate conferred in low tones, a movement caught Ilara's eye. Across the chamber, a Lyrissi diplomat, the same one who had spoken to her briefly after the previous session, was watching her intently. There was something in those luminous eyes, not sympathy this time, but wariness, as if the Lyrissi sensed that something had changed. The council will recess to consider the Earth proposal, Zhen announced. We will reconvene in 3 standard hours. As the assembly began to disperse, Ilara caught sight of a Daxi delegate moving purposefully toward a side exit, his scaled head bent close to a communication device. Something about his urgency sent a chill through her. She needed to contact Mars immediately. We've had a breakthrough. Nathan's voice was hushed with excitement even through the encrypted channel. Professor Korath identified what she calls conceptual anchors in the artifact's inscriptions. Explain, Ilara said, glancing at the door to her private communication room. The embassy suite was supposed to be secure, but she had long suspected it was monitored. They're fundamental symbolic structures that appear across multiple human writing systems, regardless of geographical or historical connection, Nathan explained. Things like the concept of circularity to represent completeness, or vertical lines to indicate counting or enumeration. And these appear on the artifact. Not just appear, they form the backbone of its entire symbolic structure. Nathan's image leaned closer to the transmitter. Ilara, these aren't just similar to human conceptual frameworks. They're identical, just more refined, more complex. It's as if someone took the deep structure of human symbolic thinking and elevated it to a level we've never achieved. Ilara processed this. So it's not that the artifact influenced early human writing. It's that whatever created this artifact thinks fundamentally like we do. Nathan finished. Or rather, we think like they did. The implications are staggering. Have you made progress on deciphering the actual content? Partial translations only. Professor Korath believes the artifact contains multiple layers of information. Surface level may be some kind of identification or designation. Deeper patterns could be instructional. Instructional for what? Nathan hesitated. We're not certain. But the neural response data suggests it's designed to trigger specific cognitive processes in human brains. Almost like it's trying to activate something. Ilara felt that same chill she'd experienced in the council chamber. Something latent in human consciousness. A capability we don't know we have. Possibly. Korath has a theory about. Nathan stopped abruptly, looking off screen. Ilara heard muffled voices. Then Nathan's face returned, now tight with concern. We've detected unusual scan patterns targeting the facility. Someone's looking for us, using advanced spectral analysis to penetrate our security screens. The council, Ilara said grimly. My request for a delay must have raised suspicions. How much time do you need? To do what? We're nowhere near understanding the full. To understand enough, Ilara cut in. Enough to use, Nathan. The council session reconvenes in less than 3 hours, and I suspect they'll deny my request. After that, they'll likely increase surveillance on Earth operations throughout the system. Nathan's expression hardened. Understood. We'll focus on the sections Professor Korath identified as potentially activation-related. If this artifact truly is meant to interface with human cognitive structures, we need to determine exactly how before it's taken from us. Do it, Ilara said. And Nathan, be prepared to move the artifact if necessary. I don't trust the Council's sudden interest in our propulsion systems. After ending the transmission, Ilara remained seated for a long moment, weighing options that would have seemed unthinkable just weeks before. Earth had played by the Council's rules for decades, accepting its place at the bottom of the cosmic hierarchy. What if that hierarchy was built on a lie? A soft chime at her door broke her reverie. When it slid open, she was surprised to find the Larissi diplomat standing there, tall and elegant with faintly luminescent skin. Commander Kane, the Larissi said, her voice melodic but urgent. I am Nayavel. We must speak. Ilara hesitated only briefly before stepping aside. Please, enter. Once the door sealed behind her, Nayavel moved to the center of the room, her movements fluid and deliberate. I will be direct, Commander. Your sudden change in diplomatic strategy is transparent to those who know what to look for. I'm not sure what you mean, Ilara replied carefully. The Lyrisi's luminous eyes studied her. Earth has discovered something. Something significant enough to alter your approach to the Council after years of consistent resistance. When Ilara didn't respond, Naya continued, the Vaxi delegation has dispatched a security vessel toward your solar system. Officially, it carries technical advisors for your propulsion systems. Unofficially, they're looking for something. Ilara finished, her mind racing. Why are you telling me this? Naya's skin pulsed with subtle patterns of light, a Lyrissi expression that Ilara couldn't interpret. The Lyrissi have long observed that the Council's hierarchy is selectively enforced. Some species are elevated, others suppressed, based on criteria that shift conveniently through time. And you think humans are being suppressed? I think, Naya said carefully, that the Council fears what it cannot control. Your species adapts rapidly, evolutionarily, technologically, socially. This makes you unpredictable. The Council prefers predictability. Ilara considered her next words carefully. And if Earth has found something that might change our position in this carefully managed hierarchy, then I would advise you to understand it fully before revealing it. Naya replied. Knowledge deployed prematurely becomes a weapon turned against its wielder. With that cryptic warning, the Lyrissi moved toward the door. The Vaxi vessel will reach your system within 30 hours. Whatever you have discovered, Commander, ensure it is secured before then. After Naya departed, Ilara immediately opened a secure channel to Admiral Chen. The situation was escalating faster than anticipated. If the Vaxi were sending a security vessel, they must suspect something significant. Admiral, we have a problem, she began without preamble. The Council is sending a ship to Earth, ostensibly to help with our propulsion systems, but I've received intelligence suggesting they're searching for something. Chen's weathered face grew grim. The artifact. Possibly. How quickly can we move it to a secure location? That's complicated, Chen replied. We've integrated substantial equipment around it for analysis. Dismantling it all would take days. And there's another issue. The artifact has begun responding. Ilara's pulse quickened. Responding how? The quantum field it emits has intensified and become more focused. Dr. Reeves believes it's reacting to their attempts to decode it. Chen hesitated. There's more. Professor Korath has a theory about why this artifact interacts specifically with human neural patterns. I'm listening. Chen took a deep breath. She believes humans share genetic markers with whoever created this artifact. Not similar evolution, Commander. Direct lineage. She thinks we're descended from them, or at least, engineered by them. The words hung in the air between them. Ilara felt as if the floor had suddenly disappeared beneath her feet. If true, this would rewrite not just human history, but humanity's understanding of itself. The gods of the Council species, she whispered. Chen nodded grimly. The precursors, the civilization that vanished 150,000 years ago, leaving only fragments that form the basis of the Council's technological foundation. The species that every Council race reveres as the architects of modern galactic civilization. And according to Korath, we're connected to them. Not just connected. Chen's voice dropped lower. She thinks we might be their direct descendants, or perhaps some kind of project they were working on before they disappeared. The artifact could be a key to awakening that heritage. Ilara's mind raced with implications. No wonder the Council species had always treated humans as lesser beings. If they suspected what Korath theorized, they would see humans as either a threat to the established order or a blasphemy against the memory of the precursors they worshipped. How certain is she? Ilara asked. Certain enough that she's attempting to activate the artifact herself, Chen replied. She believes the inscriptions are a form of genetic key, designed to trigger dormant capabilities in the human brain, capabilities we inherited from the precursors. And if she succeeds, Chen's expression was unreadable. Then for the first time since we entered the galactic community, we might have leverage. Real leverage. Ilara made her decision. Keep working. Learn everything you can before the Daxi vessel arrives. I'll return to the council session and continue the delay tactics, but be prepared for anything." As the transmission ended, Ilara stood at the window of her embassy suite, looking out at the gleaming spires of Axiom Prime. For generations, humanity had accepted its place at the bottom of the cosmic hierarchy, grateful just to be included in the grand conversation of species. What if that conversation had always been about them? What if humans weren't latecomers to an ancient party, but inheritors of a legacy older than the Council itself? The implications were as terrifying as they were exhilarating. And soon, she would face the Council again, this time, perhaps with the power to rewrite the rules of a game they had never allowed humans to win. The forgotten knowledge. Professor Ileana Korith's weathered hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the neural interface. The laboratory beneath Olympus Mons hummed with tension, the air thick with anticipation and fear. Technicians moved with deliberate precision, checking and rechecking equipment that had been hastily assembled around the artifact. "The quantum field has stabilized at 12.8 terahertz," Dr. Sharma reported, her eyes fixed on monitoring displays. "Neural resonance protocols are ready." Nathan Reeves approached the professor, concern etched on his features. "We should wait for more safety data. The field intensity has nearly doubled in the last 6 hours." Korith didn't look up from her work. "We don't have time for caution, Doctor. The Daxi vessel will reach Earth orbit in less than 10 hours. And if something goes wrong..." The professor finally met his gaze, her eyes sharp beneath heavy lids. "Then we will have failed, and the Council will ensure humanity never gets another opportunity to discover its true heritage." Admiral Chen observed from the edge of the room, his military bearing unchanged despite the extraordinary circumstances. "Professor, explain one more time exactly what you're attempting to do." Korith straightened, wincing slightly at the stiffness in her back. "The artifact emits a quantum field that specifically resonates with human neural tissue. After analyzing the patterns in the inscriptions, I believe they form a kind of activation sequence, a key that unlocks something dormant in human consciousness." "Something precursor," Nathan added. "Yes." Korith nodded. "My research has long suggested that certain anomalies in human linguistic development and cognitive capabilities couldn't be explained by standard evolutionary models. This artifact confirms what I suspected for decades. Humanity carries within it echoes of something far older than our